Do you want to be better in business or life? Do you want to be able to execute and succeed? You must have a positive mindset. You must believe and stay focused. Do you know what it takes? It takes fuel. Welcome to Fuel Your Drive.
Welcome to Fuel Your Drive. I'm your host, Josh York. And as you know, every single thing is about purpose. And this podcast is to give listeners a behind-the-scenes insight to some of the most effective, successful entrepreneurs and their practices. And today, we have a special guest. Let me tell you, our guest today, he grew up believing he wanted to be a ninth grade history teacher. But just wait. He's a Navy vet. Thank you for your service. He turned to a real estate deal maker. Okay? He is widely acclaimed as one of the most successful real estate investors and leading educators in the United States today. Can we get a mic drop? He started with no money, zero money, just like I did, sitting at his girlfriend, now wife's house with his laptop, just like I was sitting in the dining room with the laptop. I love it. He's trying to flip properties to a small email list that he just managed to put together. Today, my man is flipping thousands of deals. I asked him, he's like, I forgot. He doesn't even know how many is so many. Worth around $200 million. He started slow. He's been through the struggles just like everyone else. He wanted to quit, but you know you never quit. He looks like he's 17. This guy doesn't even age, man. He's so handsome. And let me tell you, he's doing so many deals right now per month. It's out of control. He's really stuck to it, cracked the code. He's making moves. That's why he's on the Fuel Your Drive podcast. Guys, give it up for my man, Cody Sperber. Let's get some noise. Cody, welcome to the show.
Woo! Man, I'm going to bring you around everywhere with me and just have you like as my wingman introducing me. That was probably the best introduction anybody's ever given me. So thank you very much for that.
Listen, it wasn't probably. It is the best introduction, and absolutely, I appreciate it. But listen, let's get rocking and rolling. Cody, tell us your story, man. People are dying to know. I got these people literally were sitting in their cars now. They just pulled over, and they're outside their cars. They're so excited. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet because when I listen to podcasts, you know, I do like to know a little bit about the background. But my story is kind of that rag to riches type of story. My parents didn't have a lot of money when we were growing up, and we moved around a lot. My dad got fired like every 3 years from his job. So we were bouncing from state to state. I matured very, very late in life. And that's why you said I look young. Thank you for that. That's great for me now. That was a pain in my ass when I was in junior high and high school. I mainly grew up in Arizona, though, and every time my dad got fired, we would move to Colorado, then we moved back, then I moved to Texas, then I moved back. And so we always ended up back here in Arizona. So my heart is here. My businesses are here. You know, I got a wife. I got two amazing kids. My daughter's name is Brinley. My son's name is Hudson. I got an 8 and a 10-year-old. They're freaking crazy animals. My son is just like me. My wife, my daughter's just like my wife. And I didn't want to go to college initially. Didn't know what I wanted to do. Was hanging out with a bunch of friends that were doing shit they shouldn't be doing. I grew up in my neighborhood in Mesa, Arizona. I was in a very low income area, working class area of Mesa, Arizona. My only other white friend was a guy named Brian. And me and Brian were the white kids in a very heavily Hispanic neighborhood. And so we were always getting into trouble. Our friends were, we had a bunch of friends that were selling drugs, doing drugs, partying, ditching class. And I was just along for the ride. And as I was growing up, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wasn't ready for college. I wasn't emotionally or mentally ready for it. And so I followed in my father's footsteps, actually, and I joined the Navy only because I didn't know what else to do with my life. And my dad was putting pressure on me to, get a job or go to college or something. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because it disconnected me from that environment that I was growing up in. I was overweight. I was smoking weed every single day. I was just, not in shape. And the Navy just whipped my ass. The first day in boot camp, I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble because they really put you through the ringer. And 9 weeks later, I was dressed mentally different, emotionally different. They really conditioned me and got me out of that environment. And I'm so grateful for that decision because I almost didn't do it. I was scared to go in the military because I was scared to move away from home, but so grateful that I did. I got to travel the world. When you go to a third world country like Pakistan and you're sitting there and you're watching, I watched a lady bring lunch to her husband, or I'm assuming it was her husband. And I think maybe she brought him the wrong thing, and he just hauled off and smacked her. And we were on the boat watching this happen. And we were so infuriated and angry that they were treating women this way. And I remember the perspective I got of how grateful I am to live and grow up in America. It really changed my life. Funny story, though, while I was in the military, my dad bought me a book. And the book was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I had never been around any successful people my whole childhood. Nobody around me had money. No, my parents never had money. When I asked for a new bike or something like that, my dad would actually say, "What am I, made of money? What do you think, money grows on trees around here?" So I was conditioned to have a certain relationship with money as I was growing up. And he gave me this book because he said, "This is a bestseller. I hear it's really good. I think it might be good for you. I've done a bad job." My dad actually acknowledged it. He said, "I've been doing a bad job teaching you about money and wealth. Maybe this will help." And, you're on a ship going around the Gulf, bored. I finally one day opened it up, and I read the cover to cover multiple times. That book radically shifted my perception of how money is created, how money management is done, what real estate really is. And it was kind of my first time ever hearing of this word called an asset and what a liability was and stuff. And I remember thinking to myself, man, my whole childhood, I wanted to be a history teacher. Is this really what I want to do? Is this where maybe there's more out there in life? And so while I was getting ready to get out of the military, I went to San Diego State University. I went and I talked to the history professor, and I said, "Hey, I think about becoming a history teacher. Tell me what your life is like. What's your daily routine? What does it feel like? How much money do you make?" And when I asked him the money question, he actually belted out in a loud chuckle, like, "Ha ha, you don't want to know." And I was like, "Oh, that's not the response I was looking for. Okay, what does that mean?" And he's like, "I actually have a second job that I had to take on in order just to make ends meet." I was kind of at this place where I was at this crossroads where I really didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had this passion for potentially teaching. And so I went back to my dad because he's, one of the biggest influencers in my life. And I said, "Dad, what do I do? I don't know if I want to grow up and be a teacher and struggle financially." And he said, "Well, why don't you go to school on the MGI Bill and get a degree in finance? Because finance is like the language of business. And if you can learn how to read financial documents, you might be able to survive in the business world." And reluctantly, because I'm horrible at math, I'm horrible at math. I'm known all over the world now as this big investor. I can't count on my hands and toes. I'm a disaster. So the idea of going to school for finance was mortifying to me, but I knew it was the language of business. And I was like, all right, let me see what this is all about. While I got out of the military, I enrolled in college. It was paid for by the military. That's the main reason I went. And while I was there, one more thing happened that changed my life forever, that got me into the real estate business. And I was lucky enough to have lunch with a friend of mine. His name was Jeremy. And he pulls up in a brand new Mercedes. And I'm like, "Dude, how did you get the new car?" And he's like, "Well, I flipped a house." And I'm like, "How did you do that? You don't have any money. I know you. A couple months ago, you and I were partying. You're not that guy that has deep pockets. How do you even know how to flip a house?" And he said, "Well, somebody showed me how to do it." And the cool thing is I did it with no money out of my own pocket. And when I heard that, I instantly was like, bullshit. This is I was so skeptical. I was like, phony baloney, dude. There's no way you can flip a house with no money out of your pocket. It's got to be a hustle or a scam or something. There's no way you could do it again. I thought, when I thought about real estate, that you had to have lots of money, that you had to have a real estate license, that you had to have connections, previous experience, construction knowledge, all these things. And here he is telling me that he's flipping houses using creative strategy. And I left that meeting. He penciled out on a napkin what he was doing. And I left that meeting. I took the napkin home with me. And I remember over the next week or two staring at it, getting madder and madder. And I was flashing back to this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I'm thinking, what's the connection here? Is there something here that I just don't know? And I was getting mad because I was starting to second guess my money blueprint. And I was starting to really get confused. If this is really going on and I investigate this and find out that this is a real thing, why is nobody teaching me this stuff? Why don't they talk about this in school? Why don't they talk about this in college, how come my parents never told me about this? And I just went down this rabbit hole of trying to discover the truth about wealth creation. And I was looking at different avenues. I was thinking about, okay, maybe I go into stocks, maybe I go into real estate. And I was looking at, gold. Can I do it with gold? And should I start a business? I was trying to figure out what the avenue is to create money. And real estate, I just kept coming back to real estate because it's the most proven wealth generator in history, And that was really the beginning of my real estate career. Back then, you got to go back 14 years. No YouTube, no social media. Lots of things were still getting done on newspapers, like little clippings in newspapers. There'd be like a clipping for an event coming up in your area where you can learn real estate from a guru. Or I'd see an infomercial, like some old guy that, sitting on the beach with hot babes around him. And it'd be like, hey, come to my seminar, and I'm like, okay, I guess this is how you learn real estate the creative way. And so I just started going to every seminar, workshop under the sun. And before you know it, I'm just like animal when it comes to real estate investing. I couldn't get enough of it. It was the only thing in my life I was super passionate about. And I can't tell you what happened. I just turned on. And when I started going after it. And here we are 14 years later, thousands of deals done. That business has parlayed into multiple other successful businesses. I started Clever Investor in 2010 to teach real estate investing to other people. And that business grew. And so here I am talking to good people like you, sharing my vision and my version of how to create wealth using creative strategies in the real estate space, and really just how to have a better money blueprint.
Love it. Love it. Listen, you said a lot of great things that have really resonated with me, but really we got to touch on. So number one, first of all, congratulations. Story's awesome. I love it. But we got to get deeper into it because the problem is, and I say this all the time, people always look at the finished product. They never look at what it took to get there. And listen, the crazy thing is I actually used to like having my back against the wall. As I like to always say, I've had over the years more negatives in my bank account than sunny days in the Caribbean, and I can tell stories that will give ulcers of what it took to get to where we are today. So I know you have had that too. I don't even have to ask that. I know that. So let's touch on some of those real challenges, because it's not so easy to just take a real estate class. It's not so easy. You have to be special. You have to have it. You have to have the mindset. You have to have the ability to overcome. You have to have the ability to have the mental capacity to build up. Look, you touched earlier, you went to the Navy. And again, thank you again for your service. Really appreciate that. But you realized what you were in for. I'm sure that was very uncomfortable for you. As I always say, you have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable, because that's called self-development. That's investing in yourself. So let's talk about some of those real challenges you had, because I know you've had them. I'm sure you had them. Maybe pick out one or two that are really challenging. And how did you really be able to build a mindset and an ability to overcome these issues? Because every single person, I don't care who you are in business, has issues, has challenges. I say it's like a roller coaster ride all the time, and you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. But let's touch on that a little bit, Cody.
Yeah, first off, there's so many of them that we'd be here all freaking day. But for me, my biggest self-limiting belief was the fact that I look so young. And so once I went down that rabbit hole and I started just learning about creative real estate investing and discovered that you could flip houses with no money and no credit and get paid quickly, my biggest self-limiting belief was that I looked really, really young. And so back then, one of the biggest lead gen strategies was door knocking, foreclosure properties. And so we would get a list of foreclosures and we would go out and we'd knock the door. And I mean, this is just ground and pound, go out.
I love it.
I
love it, Cody. I love it. I love it. I love it.
And so here I am. I got this beat up piece of crap Nissan pickup truck that barely works. I have no money to my name. I look like I'm 12 years old. And I got this list of foreclosures. I'm supposed to go knock on the door and tell these homeowners that I have the solution to their housing problem and that I can pay cash for their house and I can close it and I get them out of their situation. And I remember walking up to that first door, the mental roadblock, the story I was telling myself was, they're going to laugh you off the doorstep. This is a disaster. You shouldn't be here. You don't know what you're doing. Everything was just like in my way. And I remember getting out of my pickup truck. I had they called them leave behinds. These were like things like, if they don't answer the door, you could stick them in their door. Hopefully they'll call you back later. I was carrying this lead behind and I was shaking so bad that, have you ever held a piece of paper when you're about to do a speech or something and you're just shaking and then you notice it and it makes it even worse and you're like, oh no.
Yes. Oh, I know.
Here I am trembling all the way to the front door. And as I'm approaching the front door, this lady peeks through her blind and her eyes lock onto mine and I'm mortified. And I see her disappear. And right when I go to knock on the door, she opens up the door and she goes, hey, kid, you're like the 100th person to come here today. Why don't you go home and get your daddy and come back when you can really help me? And slam the door in my face. That was the first door I ever knocked. I flew back to my pickup truck. I sat in there. I couldn't even drive away. I was paralyzed. Yep. I was crying. Yep. I was like, holy God, why would anybody do this to themselves? Like, this business sucks. Like, nobody's going to ever take me seriously. And I remember it took me about 30 minutes before I finally drove away. And I went home and I sat in that unresourceful, dark place for like a week. And I was like, I couldn't even get the courage to go back. And something funny happens to people when they're at that place. They can either allow those situations to totally, derail them from their full potential. And I think a lot of people never live up to their full potential because of their self-limiting beliefs and because they stay in that unresourceful place. Fortunately for me, sometimes courage doesn't come from within. Sometimes courage comes from an external source that gives you that kick in the pants to move forward. While I was there, I remember my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, so blessed to have her in my life. She looked at me and after about the third or fourth day of being a little whiny baby, she kind of gave me this kick in the pants. I started complaining. She said, are you going to get back there? No, I'm not going back. They're just going to laugh me off the doorstep. And she finally just kind of looked at me and said, I'm so sick and tired of you being a whiny baby. I don't want to marry somebody that's scared of living up to their full potential. And when she said that to me, I remember just like it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, holy shit, like I'm going to lose this amazing person in my life. I'm going to live my life always being scared to move forward. There's no shortage of challenges and obstacles on the road to success. So am I going to allow this to defeat me or am I going to use this to fuel me? And I got the courage to go back out and I went back out and I knocked another door and they didn't laugh me off the doorstep. They actually talked to me. I didn't get the deal, but they talked to me. And after about a week of knocking doors, not getting deals, I actually knocked on one door and the lady politely told me no. I went back to my truck and I see this old man walking up to the door right behind me. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's screwed. She just told me to get lost. And he knocked on the door. He did whatever he did. And next thing you know, he disappeared in the house. And I remember thinking to myself, damn, how did this guy get through? And so I waited outside for him outside of the house for about an hour. I saw the mobile notary show up. He got the contract signed. He got the deal. And I grabbed him on his way out. And I said, mister, I don't know what you just did and how you did it, but I need to learn from you. And he kind of smiled. His name was Walt. And he smiled and he said, I've been doing door-to-door sales for almost 45 years now. I know every trick in the book. I know how to position. I know the physiology. I know what to say. I know how to overcome the objections. If you work with me, I'll show you how to get in the houses and get deals, but you got to bring me deals. And that was my first time associating, finding somebody that's already successful in it, doing whatever it takes to get proximity to them. And I worked for Walt for free for a long time, just learning the biz on how to, yeah. And that's when I finally started getting some breakthroughs. So that was a major milestone for me. But I've had everything: failed partnerships, run out of cash flow, businesses shutting down, getting sued by employees, getting sued on deals, people backing out of arrangements and deals, not writing shit down like I should, and finding myself, going through this messy situation where, he said, she said. All of them culminated into just creating some strength. And I think in business, especially nowadays, you got to have a lot of emotional and mental strength. And that's why I love your podcast. I love what you stand for, because that's your message, right? Is prioritize I just made a decision one day that I was going to prioritize my fears. And I could be afraid to fail publicly, or I could be afraid to get told no, or I could be afraid to lose money. I just made a decision that my biggest fear, and that list of priorities that I was going to make the biggest fear I have, was my fear of regret. And so it didn't go away. It's not like I'm so I have so much courage, or I'm so good at what I do that I'm able to blast through it. I just made the decision one day, this is my biggest fear. Here's all my other fears. If this is the one that's going to move me the most, then let's use it. And I just don't want to be 75 or 80 years old, broke, living off my parents, living off the government, stressed out financially, not able to live my life the way I want, and just full of regret. That's what moves me.
Cody, I like you, man. I really like you. I'm just telling you this right now. This is really going well, man. I'm really enjoying this. So first, let's touch on one thing, because I used to deal with the same challenge. How old are you now, Cody, by the way?
I'm about to turn 41.
All right, 41. Well, happy birthday. When is that? Coming up?
It's coming up August 9th, baby.
Happy birthday, man. I'm going to make sure I write a note of that, so I wish you happy birthday. So I'm 36, and when I started, I used to have a very big challenge with this, because people always ask me, because look, when you're young, people don't take you seriously unless you have the ability to persuade, the energy, the passion. You have to paint the vision, as I tell everyone. That's a challenge. So people can really relate to this. But look, a couple of things he said that was very smart. Number one, you waited for that guy. See, that's how geniuses think. You saw, you waited, you were smart. Then you did another smart move. I want everyone to listen. You worked for free. I tell people this all the time. I can't even tell you how much free stuff I've done over the years. You have to give to get. And when you don't have the experience and you don't have the knowledge, you have zero value. You have to learn. This is not rocket science, but the main point of what my man Cody just said, just do it. People don't believe me when I tell them I suffer from anxiety before I'm going to speak in front of a large audience. To this day, I still do. I use it as fuel. No one knows, but it's something in me that drives me even more. I just do it. You have to be uncomfortable to grow. Cody's done it. You can do it. I've done it. I can tell you 10 other people who've done it. You have to grow. So Cody, thank you for that. Really resonates with me. I love it. I love it. I love it, man. I'm going to make note of that August 9th. We're wishing you a happy birthday. So next, let's talk about family, because family is very important to me. I have 2 little kids as well. They're a little younger, 5 and 1. But as you're growing, I haven't touched on this yet, but I saved this for this purpose because I know you got young kids. But as you're growing a business, it's hard to balance. When you, I like to refer to it, from my man Billy Jean, he uses the word genius. I love it. But when you're a genius, you're a very different type of wired individual. How do you balance the family? How do you, look, I know you're crazy in a good way, because I'm a lunatic too. You have to be if you're going to be successful. But how do you balance it? And let's be real, because I love my wife to death too, and I'm blessed with her. But we have highs and lows just like we do in business. And I know you go through it too. But through the early years, it's stressful. It's challenging. How? How do you do it, man? Tell the people. They need to hear it.
Yeah, so I'm going to probably say something that might not be what you would see like on Instagram right now, where everybody's all fluffy and motivational and stuff. I don't believe in balance. I think balance is bullshit. I think anybody who tries to balance anything in their life is wasting their time and never going to become great. So for me, I sat my wife down very early on and I said, listen, when I started falling in love with real estate, I just said, listen, Shannon, I don't know why this is lit. I'm lit up right now. I'm passionate, and I'm starting to get that, like what you call, I'm raising my intensity level, and I'm starting to get some focus on where I want to go with my life. The upfront contract we need to have is, I can't, since regret is my biggest thing for me, I can't live my life holding back. Yep. And then get in a relationship with you where I'm regretting not taking the chances, not putting in the work, not going after my goals, my dreams. And I said, I want the same thing for you. So instead of trying to find balance, let's create an environment that's not traditional, maybe. So for instance, I'm willing, if I make money, first off, let me back up real fast before I get to that thought. When I'm at work, I need to be 1,000% focused on that. When I'm at home, I need to shut that down and be 1,000% focused, and just as passionate with the family. So instead of balance, let's just focus on prioritizing our time and raising our intensity when we're there and making each other a priority. That's going to start with some discipline. And it is going to be really hard because I'm going to have to shut my phone off when I get home. So nowadays, it's even harder with social and all that other stuff because it feels like it's 24/7. And so one habit, I heard a podcast you did with Ed Milet talking about habits, right? One habit I developed in myself was every single time I come home, I actually sit in my garage for about 5 minutes before I shut my car off and I go in the house, and I visualize all the things that happen at my during my day and with all my team members and with my businesses, my money and all that stuff. And I visualize all the things that are positive, negative. And then when I get out of the car, I park it in the garage with the car. And when I come in the house, my wife would say, "How's your day?" And I'd say, "Oh, it's a freaking disaster. I got money problems. I got this happening. I got this person wanting to quit. This person's not showing up on the job site. This person stole my materials. This person," it was all these things. And I would unload. And that was our first interaction after a long day of work. And so I just made a decision. I'm parking that in the garage. When I come in, I raise my intensity level. I put my phone away. The cooking is amazing. She looks beautiful. I want to hear about her day and her story. And everything is just positive. I try to make it a good communication environment. So that's that. But I also created a structure and a system around our life that's very untraditional. So for instance, I hired my wife. She didn't even want to do it. A personal assistant. I said, "Listen, I'm not going to be the guy you want me to be. And I'm not going to leave work to go to the grocery store to pick up some freaking milk." Right? That's not in my core competency, and it's not going to move the needle in my life. So let's get somebody else to handle those types of things. And we sat down one day and we created a list of every activity my wife and I have to do that we dislike doing. Just like I do in business, I created a system and we automated it, systematized it, deleted it, or delegated it out of our lives. So now it's so worth the money to me to hire this personal assistant for my wife, because now when I come home, she's in a better mood. She got to do yoga during the day. She got to, do the things that she's passionate about, her charitable projects, help with the kids and the family. And she has a clear headspace because the little things are still getting done and she's not putting that weight over on my side, which I was neglecting to do. And if I wouldn't have done some power moves like that, I probably we wouldn't have made it, because we were fighting over the dumbest little shit that was solvable by something like hiring her a personal assistant.
Listen, you and I are so alike, it's crazy, man. I did the same thing, literally the same thing, like almost to the T. Little different, but as I say in business, you focus on your strengths, you delegate your weaknesses. Some things you're just not going to be good at. I had someone, I recently spoke at a conference, and someone came up to me and was telling me that they're just horrible at just management, horrible. They're very unorganized. They can't manage things, can't put things together. And they're like, you motivated me so much. Thank you so much. Tomorrow, I'm going to take an organizational class to get organized. And I said to him, "No, why would you do that?" I said, "Don't waste your time on that." I was like, delegate that to someone else. I said, "What are you good at?" And he started talking about all the things he was good at. I was like, focus on that. That's going to give you more of an ROI. Don't focus on that. So listen to what Cody said. Round of applause on that, because that's smart. You have to think smart. When you can relate business to your personal life, that's how you do it. And look, I don't do the garage. I do the parking lot thing. I sit in the parking lot for 15 to 20 minutes. I close my eyes. I do this almost the same thing. And then when I'm like ready, I go home and I make sure when I walk in that door, and listen, it's very hard for me. I don't do drugs. I've never done a drug. Never. That phone is like a drug to me. It is so hard to not look at the phone that sometimes what I've been doing is I get my little man, I say, "Hey buddy, hide this for daddy." And I let him put my phone somewhere. And then at the end of the night, he gets it for me because I just don't want to touch it, because it's so hard, because I'm all about responsiveness. If you want to be great, you have to be responsive. You have to be on time, and you got to be better than every single other person. Like my workout this morning, Cody, I was dead tired. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning every day. All I wanted to do was just sleep another 2 hours, 3 hours. Still got my workout in. Then towards the end of the workout, I said, you know what? Screw this. I'm not done yet. I did another 15 rounds of my cardio. I was dying, drenched. You can go on Instagram and watch the video. Like literally almost had a heart attack, because I want to believe in my mind, no one's going to touch me. That's the mentality you have to have. But great stuff, really great stuff. Now let's touch on something else.
I love it. I just want to say one thing. You nailed it. People that work on their weaknesses are stupid. That's the dumbest advice I ever hear people give. Always focus on your strengths. I love that, man.
It's a fact, my man. It's a fact. So listen, I want to hear some other smart strategic things you did. You waited for that guy. I'm sure you did something else. I had a similar story. I cased a coffee shop for days to meet one person just to go in and get her coffee. I literally didn't even sleep. Now that's uncomfortable. Who wants to do that? It was in the middle of the winter. It was freezing. I wasn't blessed to be in Arizona where you live. It was freezing. It was snowing cold. I'm waiting. As soon as I saw that person go on, I ran in right to the person. What kind of coffee did she get? The next day I was waiting there for the coffee with her. What other things have you done that have been smart, strategic, that you thought like there's no box? What did you do?
Yeah. All right. So I got really good at real estate investing about 8 years in or something like that. I became a millionaire by age 28, a multimillionaire by age 30, all through real estate. So to say that real estate changed my life, I was able to retire my parents. I still give my parents hundreds of thousands of dollars every single year because it's just something I feel grateful and blessed to be able to do.
Great.
And
Love it.
I'm so passionate about real estate that when I started my education business, I felt like it was my duty, like it was my freaking obligation in life to share what I discovered with everybody that would listen. And so when you believe in your product that much, where you believe that it's just, if you don't do it, you're missing out on your life's purpose. When you believe that much, making a phone call or 1,000 of them and following up and just being relentless is not a big deal. Like it's actually just part of the thing. So for me, I got it in my head that one day I was watching TV and this brand new show came out called Shark Tank. And I see on Shark Tank, all these, badass entrepreneurs and they're investing, and I was at the time thinking about a course that I wanted to sell called the Fast Track Profit System. And I had this course that I was building out and I had this vision of how I was going to do it. And I wanted like a celebrity or somebody that I can connect and put on the webinar with me. And so I'm watching TV and this lady, Barbara Corcoran, shows up and I'm like, oh my God, this is the lady that I want to do some business with. But I don't know Barbara. She's in New York. She was a big real estate lady. She was so amazing and wholesome and cool. And I just instantly fell in love with Barbara. And I'm like, I'm in the real estate space. It'd be awesome if I could get Barbara on the webinar with me. Now, most people would, say, okay, how am I going to get a lady that has her own TV show on a webinar? And so I literally just, without hesitation, picked up the phone and I cold called Barbara. And I don't know how it happened, if I just caught her early or something, but after about the 5th or 6th try, I finally got a hold of her. And I pitched her and I said, Barbara, you don't know me, but my name is Cody Sperber. I have a company called Clever Investor. I'm coming out with some amazing products. I'm making video a core competency in my products. We're making real estate cool and fun, and we're training people and we're getting them turned on to wealth creation and real estate. I want you to come on this training, and I'm going to pay you more money per minute than you've ever earned in your entire life. And I just stopped talking. And she sat there for maybe 2 minutes, the most uncomfortable 2 minutes of my life, dead silent. And I remember do I talk? Do I say anything? Do I keep pitching? What do I do? And finally, after 2 minutes, she goes, I highly doubt that you're going to pay me more money per minute than I've ever earned. And I said, no, I'm going to pay you $1,000 a minute. And she goes, okay, I'm listening. And I said, so I'm willing to be, if you're willing to have me, I will be on a plane in the next 45 minutes. I will be at your office in 5 hours. I'm coming from Arizona. I will freaking.
Cody, you're the man. I love it.
And she was like, okay, kid, let's see what you got. I showed up at her office 6 hours later. I literally I didn't even go to my closet. I just literally put my shit on and just left. And I showed up in New York, fish out of water, never been to New York before, never met Barbara before. I show up at her office. I record this beginning of this webinar where Barbara talks about her story and how she went from her rags to riches, and she kind of introduces me. And this webinar turned out to be a smash success. I ended up only needing her for 7 minutes. So think about this. I paid her $7,000 plus my flights and all that stuff to have Barbara freaking Corcoran introduce me on a webinar that went off and made millions and millions of dollars. That would have never happened if I wouldn't have just picked up the dang phone, despite my fears, despite my hesitations, despite thinking this is stupid. No way she's going to answer. No way she's going to listen to me. And I made it all the way through, and I went off and we did, the product was a huge hit. So
Dude,
cool
I
story.
love it, man.
And here's one more thing. As I was leaving her office, Barbara handed me her book. Or actually, she said, I'll be right there. Hold on. Before you leave, I want to give you something. She goes and she gets her book and she writes something in the cover. And she hands it to me and says, don't look at it until you get back on the plane. And I'm thinking to myself, does Barbara really know what just happened and how much I'm going to use that introduction on a webinar and all this stuff? And I opened up the book when I was on the plane and it said, to Cody, the clever investor, you are one of the biggest hustlers I've ever met. You have the knack of turning $1 in. I have a feeling you have the knack of turning $1 into millions. Good luck with your product. So she freaking knew what I was going to do and how much of a blessing she did for me. And I have that book. So every time I hesitate or think about, this is a stupid idea, I crack that bad boy open. I look at the note from Barbara, and then I'm like, let's do this.
Did you actually have to pay her? Did she actually end up taking the money?
Yeah, she took the money. I wrote her a check right there on the spot.
Love it,
I mean, she was like, hey, for 7 minutes of time to make 7 G's or whatever it was, she thought it was great. I went off and made millions and millions of dollars with that web class.
So smart. See, look, it's an awesome story, man. But what I love about it the most, people don't understand. Look, I'll give you a quick example. I once was trying to connect with this guy. I was like, you know what? I found out he really liked hockey. I'm a big hockey guy. And I'm a big Islander fan. He was a Ranger fan. I was like, I'm going to get him the best seats in the house. I spent a couple $1,000s on him. And I just gave them to him. I found out there was an assistant and someone else. I knew he was able to go. I just gave him to him. And I remember I was telling one of my buddies at the time, who I don't even talk to anymore, because I only surround myself with high-level people who are on my level, people who get it. And he's like, why did you spend that? What's wrong with you? I already knew what the return on that was going to be. And you already knew that. It was super smart. You didn't waste any time. You just did it. You jumped on the plane. I do this. I tell people all the time. If I had to go to China, literally, in the next 20 minutes to close a huge deal, you don't even have to ask me twice. I'm there. And I will sit in the back of the plane. I'll go on a plane with chickens and I'll sit there. I don't even care. But that's what you do. That's what you got to do. Cody, this is awesome, man. Are you loving this podcast? Is this the best one you've ever done? Come on, let's be real.
I got to say, it's the best energy I've ever been around, dude. You're an interesting guy. I really like you a lot. We got to do some more stuff together. The reason I decided to come on this podcast, because it's an audience that I normally don't get to tap into, and an energy I normally don't get to tap into. I just want to share some things, because people come to me to help them make money. And I want people to think about some things about money as they leave this podcast. 90% of the wealth is held by 10% of the Americans, of people in America.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So 10% of the people hold 90% of the wealth. 90% of the people hold 73% of the debt. So think about how backwards and twisted our relationship with money is. The average American makes $52,500 a year, but they only save about $1,000 a year. We're horrible savers by nature. We're not taught to have a good positive relationship with money, and we don't have a good money blueprint.
Yep.
If you think about that, by the time you get to retirement, what age do you want to retire? I know you're not that kind of guy that kicks back and retires, but let's just say, when's the day you want to be free?
It's such a hard question, man. I could have retired already. I could have been retired. We could talk about that another day. I turned it down. I know where I'm going. I know where we're headed, but I don't know. Look, I'm too crazy, man. I don't even know if I can retire. I can't sit still.
I already know that. I already know you're going to be passionate forever. But I'm just saying, most people have like a vision of where they want to go and where they want to retire and how they want that to look. And unfortunately, we've been conditioned since we were little kids, because we learned from our teachers and our church and our parents to think about structure and money a certain way. And most people think, I'll retire at 60, right? But what does that really mean? If most people by retirement only save about $60,000 on average. Super savers save $95,776. That's a super saver. But according to Forbes, you need at least $1.8 million to comfortably retire. I think the number is much higher than that. If every single listener right now literally just wrote down on a piece of paper how much money they currently have saved for retirement, they would just be embarrassed or shocked or pissed off at that number, because they're nowhere even close to that number. And if they're reliant on their family, or they're reliant on Social Security, which, by the way, is going to run dry by 2035. The average person, by the way, with Social Security only earns $1,371 per month, or $16,452 per year. The poverty level in the United States for an individual is $19,127. So if you're living off of Social Security, you're earning less than people at below poverty level. That's no way to live your golden years. You know what I'm saying? And most people aren't financially able to get there, but yet they make excuses all along the way as if, you know, and especially you probably have a worldwide audience, but like a lot of people that come to me are from the United States. And I hear it all the time when they meet me at events or I'm speaking. They come up to me and they're like, oh, there's this challenge and this hurdle and this obstacle, and I don't know about this, and I don't have any money, and I can't get into real estate. And they have all these preconceived notions. And I'm like, listen, you're thinking about this all wrong. If you were in Cambodia right now, which the average annual income is $1,376 annually, right? I'd say, yeah, you're probably right. You're kind of financially screwed, right? The systems, the structures, the law, everything isn't set up to allow you to win. Here in the U.S., everything is in your favor. You have mentors everywhere, technology and information everywhere. You have no lack of resources or capabilities in this country. Laws are in your favor, everything. It's just and you're dead on. This is the only thing holding you back right now. And you got to get educated on how to actually win the money game. And unfortunately, most people think they could save their way to wealth. It's never going to happen. With taxes and inflation, you're never going to get there. So what to do about it? Well, look at the most proven wealth building generator in the world, where most millionaires and billionaires park their money, is real estate, right? Whether it's active real estate or passive real estate. My mission and my passion is to turn as many people on to this world that most people don't even know exists, which is creative real estate investing. I bought hundreds of houses for my portfolio, where it's really a marketing business, where I'm just became a really good marketer, got leads to come to me, people to raise their hand and say, I want to sell my house. Maybe they own the house free and clear. They've owned the property forever. It was a rental property. They've owned it forever. Now they own it free and clear. Well, I could either sit back and go, I don't have any money. I don't have good credit. No bank's going to take me seriously. Or I can work out a deal with the seller that owns the house free and clear and convince them to be the bank, convince them to finance the deal for me. Even if I have to give up all the profits, all the rent, everything for the first 3 to 5 years. The more assets you add to your portfolio, the better you're going to set yourself up for retirement. And you have to start now, because if you don't, you're already going to be screwed, because taxes, inflation, and it's getting harder to live below your means. It's just harder because of Instagram, and everybody's so freaking cool nowadays, and cars and jets and travel. And I mean, in your face, it's very hard to have that discipline. But you hear all this stuff and you should be sitting there pissed off, frustrated, confused, but then find somebody that knows how to make money, especially in the real estate space, cozy up to them and just start working at it right now.
Spot on, man. I couldn't have said it better. Everything you said is just literally 100% a fact. This has been fantastic. Let's finish up. My last question I always love to ask. If you were doing this interview, Cody, what question would you have asked?
Yeah, that's a good one. A lot of people don't ask the balance question. So I was really happy to hear that, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with that. Here's the question I would have liked to have heard. You know, I've been fortunate enough to go off and build a fairly big business. We hit the Inc. list multiple times. I got 70 plus employees working for me and team members, tons of independent contractors. Real estate itself is actually quite easy. Building and scaling a business is really freaking tough.
Hard.
And I look at my job as the CEO of a company to be three things. Number one is cash flow management. Most people focus on top line revenue. I always focus on cash flow management. I don't know if it's the real estate investor in me, but cash flow is...
That's very smart. I tell people that all the time. Very smart. Very, very smart.
Cash flow, baby. Like, sales and cash flow solve everything, right?
Everything.
And marketing solves everything. I mean, if you're not dominating your lead generation online and stuff right now, that every part of your being should be leaning in on that and trying to dominate that.
Yep.
So cash flow management is a major thing. The second thing is to being one of the most enthusiastic, loudest megaphones about your brand. That's why I like you. I can tell you're so bought in that it's become lifestyle, like it is every part of you. And that's why you'd be willing to swing from the rafters and do whatever it took to get people on board with your vision. And I think true great leaders do that. And if you're a CEO, you should have the most enthusiasm, the most intensity, and the brand management, branding your company. The third thing is the thing that most entrepreneurs struggle with, and that's proximity and leverage. Leverage is power in business, and you have to be able to surround yourself and get people on board with your vision and get them on the right seat of the bus doing the right activity. But here's where most people break down. Most entrepreneurs know, hey, I want to hire somebody for this thing, right? Marketing or sales or fulfillment or whatever. I want to hire and put you here. Where they fail is they know what they want that person to do. They maybe even know how they want that person to do it. They fail to sell the dream of what's in it for them when they go and do it with you and they take it to that next level. That's the key. Yep. If you're a CEO and you can master the art of selling people the dream and showing them how they win when their vision, because I think you can have a big vision, but other people can also have their vision within your vision. And if you can put it all freaking together, that's when the sky's the limit. You can scale your business and just absolutely crush it.
I live by it every day. It's called EI, emotional intelligence, understanding people and what makes them tick, how you provide value, and how you make them part of the whole picture. It's the most important thing. Cody, you're a freak dude. Cody, I love you, man. I really like you, man. We're going to do something. We're 100% going to do something together. We're going to connect. But listen, this podcast was fire. I don't even know if anyone's car's overheated, your iPod burned out. I don't know what kind of happened, but the energy was out of control. Cody, where can people find you? Because I'm sure a lot of people are going to be coming after you. Where can they find you?
Yeah, at Clever Investor on YouTube, putting out 3-4 videos a week. At Clever Investor on Instagram. I personally answer my DM. I'm like that weird guy that loves the front end interaction and stuff. I want to be on the front lines. I have no ego. I love everybody that follows me. I interact with everybody. I try to provide as much value and service as I can. So hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, at Clever Investor. I'd love to get to know you guys.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, with that said, that's a wrap. Remember to fuel your drive. Until next time, guys. See ya.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast, Fuel Your Drive. Please be sure to subscribe and leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. And also, make sure you follow Jim Guys on Instagram. And of course, myself, Josh York GG. We're going to change the world. And we want to help you along the journey.